thank you all once again for joining me on today's journey towards resilience. Even the topic today is not going to be as concrete or as defined as hopefully other ones that you have listened to. But the intention today is to relate to you what I can describe in words. What is that thing called the delicate thread of love and listening? The delicate thread of love and listening. That kind of was distilled and drawn out from Resilience, the Beauty of Presence, the book itself, where the main model construct of that book was observation and communication. And that is the general construct and context for me on this journey in relating how I get to daily resilience on my journey. But the ends of that main model of observation and communication for resilience, the beauty of presence, those do not represent income or outcome or results, or definitely not answers. Not are those aspects necessary destinations in any effort or intention or desire. I know typically we do want to know, start at A, end at B. It should be that way, but usually it never is like that. The main intent of this discussion today is the constant that may have you arrive and depart from those stations called observation and communication. I see them more as not necessarily stations, but as more as perspectives in time and space. But I'm more interested and passionate about the constant and not so much the variables or trying to control the changes of those stations, if you will. To me, it's not a good idea to fix those starting and ending points. I know typically you're on a journey, you're starting at home, go to the office, start and finish. But even before that quote unquote start and that quote unquote finish, you're not stopping, or you are starting, but you started before that started, and you're ending when you get to that point. That's a new start when you get there. Are you following me with that? The constant, however, is the necessary and absolute love and listening that provides you and I with that available and common perspective that we can share readily, easily, all day, all night. You don't need to buy or access or steal love or listening. That is free to you and I whenever we choose/decide to observe the thought, the idea. Amidst so many choices and challenges, we can do this once we have defined our awareness of what drives us, what actually does drive us. Certainly, that determination is unique to me and to you, but not necessarily vastly different, and definitely not by comparison or in competition. I'm asking myself, but I'm asking you also to listen to and love yourself. Listen and love to all you encounter. I'm asking you to be more constant, almost you becoming the constant of being current and present with this delicate thread of love and listening. If you will consider an earlier podcast, maybe a few months ago, when I have tried to describe that other common essence of all of us, that delicate spark, or I call the pilot light, that insisted and inspired you and I to be here. We had, each of us, that same initial spark of life. It didn't start with you and I. it started with, yes, kind of, sort of, that started. Another pulling back, that spark of life was with your mother and father. Was that the absolute beginning of you and I in our respective parents? No, because before them, spark in life of their parents that brought them, not together, but brought them here, and then they got together, and then now here you and I are. But from the same description, that delicate spark of life, that for those of us who grew up in not so much privileged backgrounds or available resources, we had the resources created for us that we needed. We had all that we needed. Not in comparison to the guy across the street on the other side of the tracks who had the big mansions and scads of money. No, again, not in comparison to anybody or anything. We all were given all of the resources we needed. Not the ones we wanted, all that we needed. So even going backwards, just for a moment, I never like talking about going backwards, but considering that part, because now we're comparing what they had and what we had. But back then, if you're like me, it never really mattered. Because even what I mentioned in this podcast today, this episode today, what I did have was the love of my family. The love from my grandparents who raised me. The love from my cousins, aunts, uncles, friends. I don't remember us lacking anything. I certainly did not miss any meals. I can prove it to you today. So it wasn't like we were lacking. Maybe some people have that perspective or experience that we didn't have all those things. We didn't have a refrigerator. We didn't have an ice box. We didn't have, 2 cars. We barely had a car. I can appreciate that. Although it wasn't my experience, I don't remember ever wanting, and I mean wanting, things. I never lacked the need for the love that I felt. And I didn't even respect it back then as far as understanding what love meant to me. That didn't come for decades later. But as I said to you at the beginning of this discussion, that delicate thread of love and listening. And even before that was that really delicate spark, that pilot light that lights our way each day. Although it stays lit, we still have the responsibility to maintain that spark. Me, I've done many things to almost absolutely snuff out that inspiration. Working against myself mentally, myself spiritually, myself overall. But in some ways, I was given the grace to be restored from that mistake or that presumption or assumption of my own individual power. But perhaps I'll discuss that in another episode. Until then, please stay current, stay present, and really consider this always as 820.